So welcome to the second part of a two-part series, The Enlightened Self. And with us we have Dr. Prashant Kakoday, who is associated with the Brahma Kumaris, World Spiritual University. And this week we're going to continue. Last week Prashant was speaking about the mindsets, and that giving an example that present day we are living our lives, we are as a being, we are as if eagles, but we're living our lives as if in chicken mentality and trying to improve the life of the chicken. So Prashant was talking about these two as if psychologies that we have, and that we have huge potential, and that everyone has this potential, and liking that to enlightenment. And also Prashant mentioned it's a beautiful process. So it'll be nice to hear a bit more today to clarify some aspects of this. What is the process and how can we make enlightenment light? So Prashant, welcome.
It's a pleasure. And the image of the eagle is a nice image, but the big challenge in this is that this side of us, the eagle side of us, is invisible, and on the other side, at the gross level, we have created many ego. So if I was to use a visual image, I got this little sketch with me, and in this sketch is shown a physical world represented by the black, dark colored box, and there is a reality beyond this box. So this is a very practical image for us to hold. The whole physical world is this represented by this box, and we are travelers. The invisible me is a traveler through this.
So you're saying this shift from the gross consciousness to this, maybe can we call it subtle, acknowledging the invisible?
Yes.
You would call that a process of enlightenment. Is that?
It will lead eventually, yes, because more you wake up to that side of it, that is like a sublime, ultimate truth of everyone. Here is a life where there is no reason for sorrow. Here is a life where you understand the truth. You understand the truth of everyone. So the word enlightenment would be the right word for that.
It sounds nice. It sounds great, enlightenment, and many are seeking it. But I can't really see why it's so bad to be treating others as the role and to be seen as a role. Because surely this is, it seems to be what we were working for, actually. So maybe you could say a bit more about, maybe you mentioned contrast, life. There's no reason for sorrow. So you're putting in a whole different way of being. So it might be nice to hear a bit more about the contrast and why should we go for this?
We like to give the image. Someone is acting in a drama, and acting children's. We make a drama for the children. Someone is acting as a camel for 5 minutes, and another person acting as an elephant for 5 minutes. They make the drama, they come home. During this time in the drama, if they were to believe that they really are the camels and elephants, then that is not a small mistake, that's a big delusion. And if they were to completely forget their world as a result, then it is even a bigger problem, because they got their parents and they got their life and they got a home, and they that there are whatever their needs and their treasures, that is more important. To be so caught up in the world of camel and elephant and worrying, complaining, trying to change the script, totally unnecessary, but also so much loss of the truth. This is exactly what is happening in the present world, where we are so lost in this drama. It is no different to camel and elephant drama. And because it is so complex, this drama, and so big, and there are millions and billions acting in this drama, it appears to be the whole reality. But it is still the same drama like camel and elephant. And even if we just realize this, that maybe we are deceived by this. What if this is a really uh, fiction and there may be reality behind? To even question this is a first step to step out of this delusion. And it can, any delusion is unnecessary, but it often leads to sorrow in patients in delusion. They take unnecessary sorrow for nothing. And one who is in delusion is not useful to others either. They are not useful to themselves, they are not useful to others. Something similar is happening to us. We become completely useless when we are in that state. We can't understand the real issue, real problem. So even one person coming out of this, he is useful to himself, useful to others.
Yeah, thank you. It makes it very clear. And I think last week you also used this word delusion, which is a strong word, loss of truth, and explaining the reason for sorrow. And it feels like you're actually looking at the root, where therefore we can work at what is the essence behind. So we don't need to try to fix our lives. So I think last week you spoke about we can get caught in trying to improve the life of the chicken. So this helps us to understand why, when the ego in that perspective, that invisible perspective, is understood, we can actually even resolve many aspects of our negative feeling.
Yes, absolutely. Now, in this whole, it appears simple. When we are talking about camel and elephant, it appears simple. At this level, the to grasp the invisible and not just stay as a concept and nice information and nice knowledge, but to actually experience it, to to wake up to that dimension, to live in that dimension, we need a spiritual intellect, as if we need a sight, and at present we are not using that sight. And in Sanskrit, the nice word for that is paras, intellect. And maybe what Plato spoke of during his writings, news, that word, Greek word, it describes nicely what the paras intellect is. And with this intellect, you can see what is subtle, not just have a concept, you can see. You can see what is eternal. You are seeing the way God sees. That's the way Plato described it. And godlike kind of mind. And when you are seeing with this intellect, or for us as if making this intellect stronger, we have to as if make the muscle stronger. And when you are making it stronger, then this dimension becomes more and more real. And also that perspective, that even though this physical world, and we call it drama, it may be very big and very convincing, it appears small because you are training yourselves to see on a broader scale. You are training yourself to see eternity. Subtlety is not just a concept, not just a meditation, but that is your reality. And that makes a big difference in this process to step out of this. Otherwise, just a nice concept, but at a practical level, you are caught in the elephant and camel world.
What you're saying is very profound, and it gives maybe it'd be nice to see that sketch again, because in a way, this is crucial, the last point that you made, that you're encapsulating the whole physical reality in that box, and then allowing as if oneself to consider what is beyond.
Yes.
And it seems to answer a lot of the resistance that people find with meditation. There's some kind of struggle. And when you mentioned about this divine, when you mentioned spiritual intellect, which you said called paras. So this sounds like the way to keep things in proportion, as if we get the context of what we're doing. Because often this struggling, you mentioned earlier, making the role spiritual.
Yes.
And so that seems to be quite a key point.
Yeah.
I'd like to say a bit more about
Yes. At a practical level, all we can do is go for quality. Come in this experience, maybe for a minute, but go fully into the experience. Now, create the experience, what it will be like when you are fully awake, and what that subtle dimension is, and seeing the physical world really as a story, and nothing more than a story. Complete freedom from the physical. Now, this is like we can see it even as an experiment for 1 minute. All that happens during that minute, you will make the paras stronger, because it is almost like, unless I have the muscles, I can't run a marathon on first day. I have to start somewhere. And so you run a short distance, and then you are making the muscles strong. 1 minute you are using paras, you are seeing with a completely different perspective, as if you are seeing from the perspective of the awake soul, who sees everything physical as a great performance in a great drama. But that is it. We know beforehand it has got a script, it has got a beginning, it has got an end. Every episode is going to finish, and nothing really matters in this script. You are seeing with this full detachment. That detachment is necessary to experience the sky.
I was just in my mind trying to understand on what basis you're seeing this physical world, which you're showing as that box, on what basis you see it as a story, but you sort of answered that at the end. And certainly when we look back at our own lives, it almost does feel like a story. And sometimes we don't even feel that that was oneself. So this aspect of 100% detachment, I suppose, by playing with this perspective, you actually kind of fought for that 1 minute to see as a story. But it's in a way, it feels a little bit uneasy, in a sense, to fully embrace it without sort of understanding it a bit more.
Absolutely, because it is completely new thinking, and that is why we have to play with it more as a fun, as a, you are almost experimenting with it. Just like if you are to ride a bicycle, you know, it is impossible for a person to get on the bicycle and be normal, in riding. He experiments with it and gradually realizes the fun, and it realizes he can balance, and then he can take part in the race as well. Something similar here. Here you are literally learning completely different perspective, and you start somewhere, and you use these little gifts that we have. Paras is like a big gift. Seeing with full clarity, that's a gift. Any help that we get, we use it and go for 100% clarity. Maybe for seconds, maybe getting glimpses, but let me see it in this new perspective. And once you start doing this, you realize, why am I holding on to this other perspective where I have no reason why I should be so stubbornly holding on to that perspective? That is just my old perspective. That's all. I've been seeing it that way, as if this is all matters and I should be worrying about this. And I'm trying to live as much as possible, and I have to be selfish, and I got enemies. Why am I holding on to this perspective? What is, there is no real reason, you realize. But deeper inside, we just like, how do we know which is the right posture for us? The posture that gives you pain and that gives you fractures, they are not likely to be in the right postures. Same way here, you go in that perspective, only you are getting pain unnecessarily. You try this perspective of the invisible observer, you realize everything falls in place. During the seconds, minutes, there is no reason for slightest feelings of disappointment or trauma, past trauma, worry, because you are out of the story. You are seeing the story as story, and you are able to experience the what it means to experience contentment, what it means, that supersensuous experiences of everyone.
Yeah, as you were speaking, I can see that I can take my tendencies with me to meditation. So I'm going to achieve this and this, and have a, maybe carrying the worry with me somehow. And when you said it's fun and it's to experiment, I think that was very key. And then you said seconds and minutes, so it's almost much. It's about bringing that lightness into the practice.
Yes.
So.
And it is, one is lightness with it, and it is also literally like a bringing light. It is like light of knowledge. You are seeing things in full light, in clarity, and the whole process is like, you are trying to avoid darkness. Moment you go down, you are into some kind of a confusion, and it is obvious. The life itself is in darkness, in our ideas of I and world, in confusion and darkness. So when we are in darkness, everyone has value for light. So if you come into light, and if you are able to shine this light for others, there is value for this, in immense value. So it is like a nice privilege for you. You are able to create this light for others as well. So in any interaction, you know, it is possible for you to. It is not an enlightenment is a privilege for just few. It is the right of everyone. So you have the option to create this light for others. How? See the beautiful truth of everyone behind this camel and elephant world. Everyone is playing the part, but behind this camel part, he's the actor. He is something very different. In this case, the actor is angelic soul, is immortal. You're seeing that reality for few seconds, but as if these few seconds you are creating light, and that will make it easy for him to see who he is. You start the process for him, and this is the most precious, shift that we can bring about in this world. We all are social human beings. All human beings are social. We all like to help, even in remote corners, even children. 18-month-old child, if given a chance, he will try to help the adults. He will pick up things and try to make it easy for adults. This is such a deep instinct in everyone to cooperate. But we help to the level that we can, and within the limits of our understanding. If you come into Paras, and if you are able to see in this full light, you can cooperate with this world with light. Is the biggest gift. But at any level, whoever you interact with, you can create light. And a practical example, say someone has an illness, maybe a cancer. Can a doctor really promise that he can cure every cancer patient, or can he make anyone immortal? He cannot. But he has an option to shine light on the soul of the person, and that has it starts the process in him in which the soul wakes up and realizes that he is not the part that is being played. Part has limitations. He is already immortal. He is already healthy. His reality is different. You are shining light. You are not even speaking any words, but a seed is planted. That process will grow. He will discover this amazingly beautiful truth in him. Seconds. You are doing this for just few seconds. That's enough. Do this and you can step back.
Actually, I heard a story you just reminded me in the organization of Brahma Kumaris that someone who was very ill, I think they had cancer, and they went to see one of the senior sisters, and she said, "You're going to the hospital in order to serve the doctors," meaning, as you were saying, to see them as souls. So such an elevating perspective that we ordinarily would not have this vision of someone who maybe only had 4 or 5 days left and physically, but actually there is something to see the other as a soul, as you mentioned. So that story really touched me. And I suppose in a more ordinary, everyday context for our lives, if someone is in a bad place emotionally, if we are able to not as if see the story, but go beyond that and see that the soul is distinct, I guess it helps them to come more in touch with that.
Yes.
So, well, I have a question. Does everyone become enlightened? Is it, and is it only some that actually reach this?
Yes, and as we were saying before, we all are from the sky, and it is the right of everyone to re-experience the sky. It's a shame that we spend so much time, just thinking about it and shuffling forward and backward, and we have the option to fly and make it easy for others to fly. Within that, we can enjoy the sky and also enjoy the story.
So, I mean, some might say that actually somehow you're losing, but you say in a way actually you get both.
Yes, because at present sky doesn't exist. That option doesn't even exist. And the story, we are so caught up in it that we can't even enjoy the story. One nice image, we might have used sometime, a honey bee and the honey pot. Honey bee, honey is very special, but if the honey bee is drowning in the honey pot, then it is not a big success for the honeybee. It can't enjoy the honey pot nor enjoy the sky, cannot use the wings. You help the honeybee fly, then it can enjoy the sky, but also enjoy the honey also, take fragrance and be out of it.
It's quite a graphic image.
Yes.
Drowning in honey. Doesn't sound good. I have a question here. Maybe it's from Sue. People say, love yourself. You should love yourself and respect yourself. What does this mean in the context of what you're saying? Would you like to explain?
Yes. Ordinarily, it may be just the ego wants attention and ego wants to love itself. This is what is really happening. But more accurately, maybe the self has to wake up. That is most important thing. When the self wakes up and realizes the wonder of the self, greatness of the self, then there is not really loving the self. You know the wonder and the self-respect. But love is for, goes beyond. So but in a sort of some circles, that language, love the self, I feel is coming from one of the ego.
Yeah, maybe that could be quite a statement for some. But you were mentioning today, but also last time, this as if we have to be very cautious not to be working at the role level. And that's when spirituality does become heavy, potentially, because it's sort of it could be an affirmation, and we have to keep repeating it, but we might get affirmation fatigue.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting angle. I hope that answers the question. I have another question here. You mentioned about healing, so it's relating to that earlier. Would your thoughts about cancer apply to other human diseases such as diabetes or other? Is there real potential for healing through enlightenment?
Healing of the cancer.
Yeah, the question doesn't specify, but I think
Any illness. What we are seeing here, any illness is there for a deeper reason. And in a broader principle is pain exists just to give us a message. If you change the posture, there is no pain. And so illness is there to give us a message, to change the posture. And so in this case, the posture is the deeper spiritual posture. More we are going in the direction of delusion, attachments, ego, that will invite different kinds of pain. And one pain is physical illness. So to go through that process, and if someone does it, there will be results. And sometimes results are so big, then you deserve a different body also. In this scale and in this understanding, spiritual understanding, just survival to the body is not a big achievement, and that is not the aim. Because body is, beforehand, it is like a temporary role. But healing of the soul, that is the good aim to go for. But anything of this nature, if something is right at a deep level, it is very unlikely, things will be wrong at a outer level even.
it reminds me of the positioning that Gandhi would take, almost like the cause was bigger than his life, in a sense.
Right.
So you're almost pointing towards something like that, which I think is very challenging for most of us. But presumably we need to do everything we can in this life in order to have the time to learn this, if should there be. And maybe this is a challenge in many societies, that there is a whole topic there about what happens after this life.
Yes.
So maybe we need to really understand that properly to have that kind of positioning, which I guess Gandhi had, and many who have that something, a larger cause, something more than just because most of the time we're working at this level and not even thinking about end or.
In this area, this process, big jump, our key area here now in our language over the last half an hour, this role is Prashant, and it is not I. Prashant is he. To play with this attitude, even from time to time, to see what it feels like, to perspective of the soul, awake soul. He can't easily use the letter I to the role. If we are playing a role of a camel for 5 minutes, you will never feel like using the word I for the camel. It will look absurd to say I, and you are meaning really that you are meaning talking about camel. You know, even when you are on the stage, you won't feel that is right. Something similar here. We need to realize that the real me is very, very different, distinct from Prashant. It is not an extension, it is not a continuation, it is different right now. And this Prashant is a very temporary role that we are associated with. Real me is invisible here. And just to have this attitude, not necessarily language of course, it will come across, to play with it, to see that role is different to you. And and that obsession that exists in the world around me, trying to protect me or promote me, this thing going on, at least you will find during these minutes you are free from that. You know, that will reduce the deeper ego also, but that is a relief to discover that we can go past the ego of this role and experience the bliss of the soul during those seconds, minutes. And for this, it is not a long process. It can be today. We don't need any preparation. Play with it now.
Is this why we like to go on holiday? And I think last time you mentioned a guest,
Yes.
because if you're not, when you're surrounded by the things which remind you of your life, it can be it can be heaviness there because it reminds you of responsibilities and um, commitments. I mean, maybe enjoy it, but it's nice to be in another place. So is it it's a need? You mentioned relief, and I got this feeling how almost you can step aside. And when we go on holiday, we already have a home, but we like to go somewhere else, experience something else.
Yes.
So it's almost like this.
Excellent. Yes. And this whole physical world, it is we can see it as a story. It is also a drama, but it is also like a holiday. And what happens in a holiday? You are very much involved, but at the same time you're detached. You are a traveler. You are going past, and because of that detachment, you enjoy it. Here you realize that you are on a long holiday, free. And even if you are doing any job, these are holiday jobs. And you are not doing anything wrong. It is you are coming closer to the truth if you have this attitude. Let there be the fun inside of being on holiday. Everything is a gift, and you are doing things, but that these are holiday jobs. If the holiday is cut short, that is also okay. But if the holiday that is also okay. But one thing that is guaranteed in this holiday, you return back safely.
You don't need holiday insurance.
You don't need insurance.
You mentioned God earlier, but you sort of dropped it in. I have a question. Would knowing God also be like a point of enlightenment? How does God fit into it's out of the holiday?
You know, God as a symbol of one who is awake, or one who is always awake. And this is enough for us. Just this insight, that here is a being who is always awake. So what would it be like? What would he know? What does he think? What does he see? What does he feel? We have already enough to work on. And more you are doing this, it is experience is happening within you. And because he is awake, that experience of waking up will happen within you. You are out of this delusion during those seconds.
It's a very experiential understanding of God.
Yes.
It's it's almost like it's something you use, or it's something that is relevant in meditation. Is it the same God as religion, or how does it relate?
It means ultimately we know there is one God,
Mm.
but there may be many, many ideas of God and many projections of God. So it is possible the ego within us can create its own God. So if I got many ego, I can create many gods for this different ego. Why would anyone who is awake be bothered to change the script in any story? There are so many stories in this world. Why would anybody, who is in his sense, be interested to change the story? So the when you are trying to see this personality that is awake, you are understanding the emphasis is different. Emphasis of one who is awake would be to help others wake up and get out of this delusion and discover the great truth that already exists, eternal truth that already exists. Changing the script is not going to solve anything because tomorrow you have to change it again. Every episode has an end. So it is like a ego can never be satisfied.
Yes, it's something I can recognize when you struggling and then you find comfort, but then there's still a kind of desire there. So it makes sense.
Yes.
So it'll be nice to maybe finish with a few moments of meditation to get a bit more of this feeling, to understand the subtlety of this.
Sure.
Thank you.
So during these minutes, we can play with this paras intellect. And if we use this, we see the physical world as small as story. We can come beyond the physical and the awake soul sees this sky beyond the sky. For him, it is normal to be immortal. It is normal to look like a star, to look like tiny, tiny spark of light, conscious living, normal to be secure forever, normal to belong to this great family of angelic souls, confident of the company of God, being loved by God. For him, this is like two stars, sparks of light together, and aware that far, far away there is a script and a story and a drama. As we continue on our journey in the sky and on earth, we aim to hold on to this image of two stars and the eternal bond between these two stars.
Thank you, Dr. Prashant. That very gentle image at the end, 2 stars. So it's something to play with, something to explore a bit more. So look forward to meeting again for another series.
Sure.
Thank you.
Pleasure.